This video will address the manufacturing and reuse of flexible hose fluid line fittings. Flexible hose is used in aircraft fluid systems to connect moving parts with stationary parts in locations which are subject to vibration or where a great amount of flexibility is needed. It can also serve as a connector in metal tubing systems. This type of hose is suitable for use in fuel, oil, coolant, and hydraulic systems. The nipple, the socket, and the B-nut are detachable fittings used on the flexible hose and may be detached and reused if they are not damaged. Otherwise, new fittings must be used. Masking tape is placed on the hose as a means to prevent fraying of the braided line during the cutting process. The tape must be removed prior to installing the socket fittings. The practical test standards will have you to demonstrate the skills necessary to fabricate and install fittings on a flexible hose. This is a level 3 requirement.
My name is Lynn Clark, and today we'll be demonstrating to you how to do a flexible aviation line. First thing is to check your TSO requirements and your 4313 and the aircraft manufacturer service guide to make sure that we're making the proper line with the correct size, part number, fittings, and length. For this demonstration, we're using a single wire braid fabric covering line. Our part number is MILH 8794-5L. With the inner diameter of 1/4 inch. We also have our proper fittings for this particular hose that we are making. We have our mandrel that fits. We also have our 5/8 and our 9/16 wrench. And to also help us install it, we have a 5/8 socket on our 3/8 handle. You also want to make sure you have your hydraulic fluid for your lubrication, which is a must, a pig pad, and a cloth. So once we determine the size of our cord with the proper 5 to 8% slack, we can measure our line. We tape each end tightly to prevent the fraying of our line, and we want to make sure that we are very careful with it so we don't cause any failure. So once we cut it, we remove the tape, trim it, trim any little fibers away, and then we're on to the next step of putting it together. We're doing a flexible line today. So what we're going to do is demonstrate how to cut it. With this particular line, it is rubber on the inside with wire on the outside and fabric. There's 2 ways of cutting it, which is with a saw or with a hacksaw. We're going to show you how to do the hacksaw. But before we can cut it, we have to make sure we measure it and have the proper slack and everything to it. And then we have to tightly tape it with some masking tape to prevent any fraying and to make sure it stays together while we do it. So I'm just going to cut it right in between the tape.
The use of the vise with the hacksaw was shown in the previous example for illustration purposes. The use of a miter box with the hacksaw will assist with ensuring the finished cut on the hose yields a flat end for mounting the socket squarely. A miter box or miter saw are the preferred methods to cut the flexible hose. The objective to cutting the hose evenly is to ensure it will seat squarely into the socket during the installation process.
Hi, my name is Connor Westerling from Savannah Tech. I'm going to be teaching you how to put your socket onto your braided hose for hydraulic fluids. So you want to make sure you fit your socket, make sure there's no flaring coming out, and then you want to go counterclockwise to tighten it on. Counterclockwise is the only way it'll thread on. If you go clockwise, it's going to loosen up. So when you look inside, you won't be able to see it on here. It should be, the braided hose should be right up against the threads. You may need to clamp it in a vise to get there though. And there we go. Now that we have our socket on, on our braided tube, we're gonna start our hydraulic line. First, we'll need to set up the mandrel. The mandrel has the nipple and the B-nut. They go together like so. The nipple goes into the B-nut and they will be ready. So, slides onto the mandrel, tighten down securely so it does not come apart. We'll need to get the vise and tighten it up. Okay. Now that we're tightened up, we're going to start our assembly. So I'm going to have it set my way, and we're going to make sure this slides into there with enough pressure. So we're going to get our B-nut and our nipple into this socket. All right, so what we're going to need to do is you need to have it straight and enough pressure, but also enough lubrication. So we're going to lubricate it up. We're going to make sure we have enough lubrication in the hose and then on the nipple. Make sure. Okay, once we get to here, we're gonna have to slow down a little bit because we're looking for a certain clearance. So I'm gonna get my thickness gauges out. We'll slowly coming down, and I'm gonna make sure I stay in the thickness area. I changed the tube setup so y'all can see clearly. We're gonna be checking for clearance on these tubes. Now the clearance would be in your 4313 about your tube. So we're gonna give it a check real quick to make sure that it's good enough. And that's a little bit on the big side, so we're going to tighten it down a little more. And we could just fit that tube in there with a little bit of friction, so that will be a good hose. Okay, so we're going to set our mandrel, our B-nut, and our nipple into the socket. Now, we want to put it in there, but we have to lube it very well. If you do not lube it very well, you have a pretty high chance of stripping the nipple. If you also don't apply enough pressure, you can strip the nipple. Okay, so let's apply a good amount of pressure. We'll rotate slowly. All right, we're going to continue tightening until we have to check for clearances. So we're almost there to start slowing down. All right, so we got to start slowing down here. We're going to check for clearances just for real quick. We're almost there, just maybe a half turn. And that is perfect. So we're going to take that off, and we're going to take the mandrel off. There you go. There's your fluid tube. Both sides should freely spin.
Hi, I'm Chase McCracken, and I'm with Savannah Tech, and we're going to do a pressure test on this flex hose. And so what you want to do is look in your 4313 to see what your operating pressure will be for this one, and it's a 1/4 inch, and that will be a 3,000 operating pressure. And your 4313 also says in order to test the hose, you need to do it 1.5 times the system pressure. And for this one, it'll be 4,500, so because 3,000 plus 1,500, which is half. And so once you have it, you hook it up in your system, and you're going to have it closed and make sure your valve is also closed. Then you want to start pumping. And there you can see it go up. And you keep going until you're about 4,500. I think that's you need a little bit more. And as you can see, nothing's coming out of the hose. There's no leaks or anything. So this is a good hose.
Hey, my name is Elijah Woodall. I'm here at Savannah Technical College, and I'm going to show you guys how to remove a flexible hose fitting using this mandrel right here. First thing we're going to do is stick it in here and screw it onto our fitting. Now, this isn't, it's only hand tight right now, so I'll put it in the vise here. When we get it in the vise, I've got a 9/16 and a 5/8 wrench. 5/8 up top, 9/16 down below. And I'm just going to get it as tight as I can, because I want to make sure that this doesn't slip at all. It's easy to strip these whenever removing them. Okay, with our mandrel in place, lefty loosey, righty tighty, I just slowly start turning this to the left. You should feel resistance, but it shouldn't be too hard to turn it, as you're going to start unthreading our fitting here. It's going to take a few turns. You'll see that it is going up very slowly, so I'll just speed up here, try and get it out for you. Gets easier as you turn it. Now that we're at this point, I can really just hand turn it. Keep going, and there it is. The last step is to remove our hose fitting, which is lefty loosey, righty tighty, 5/8 wrench. So we'll reverse that righty tighty, lefty loosey. Just screw this off the same way you put it on. There you go.